We live in the shadow of a religiously inspired terror in an era when science has plainly shown religious superstitions to be false.
The Lord's my shepherd, I'll not want.
And yet it's a strange anomaly that faith schools are increasing in number and influence in our education system, with active encouragement from Tony Blair's government. There are already 7,000 faith schools in Britain, but the government's trust reforms are encouraging many more. Over half the new city academies are expected to be sponsored by religious organisations.
My son, do not despise the chastening of the Lord, for whom the Lord loves he corrects. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. Amen.
The most worrying development is a new wave of private evangelical schools that have adopted the American Baptist ACE curriculum, Accelerated Christian Education.
Have you been to one of these schools before? No. Okay.
Accelerated Christian Education slips religious superstitions back into science.
If you want to be rude, you would say it's program learning. If you want to be polite, it's individualised instruction. So really, each one is teaching themselves to a certain extent. Of course, that has to be modified with adult supervision and so on.
Right, so here you need to find the page where the answer is and write the page number next to it. When you find the answer, you need to underline it. Okay?
I had a look at the curriculum booklet that you use for science, and it was very noticeable that God or Jesus did come on just about every page.
Yes, yeah. We don't have anything like religious instruction in the school because it is part of...
I can see you wouldn't need it.
No, of course not. Absolutely.
In one section in the science thing, I was sort of taken aback because I suddenly started reading about Noah's Ark. And what's that got to do with a science lesson?
I suppose that depends on your opinion. It could have a lot. If you believe in the story, it could have a lot to do with science. But, I mean, the stuff that I was taught when I was a kid at school in science, now you would laugh at and say it was a myth, but that's what I was taught.
What were you taught?
Well, when I was taught, one of the things that they taught me at school that I've always remembered was that the moon came from the ocean here on Earth and was flung into space, and that's where it came from.
Yes. Well, what you should have been taught, I suppose, is that there is a strong current theory that that's what happened.
So what you're really trying to ask me is, do you think the Genesis story was true and that God created the world in 7 days? That's what you would really like to ask me, right? My answer to that is, I don't know. Having said that, do I think that if God wanted to do it in 7 days, he could? Yeah, I think he could.
He could do anything.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a sort of an academic question which actually I don't care about the answer very much, really. Yes. Does that make sense?
Kind of, yes, it does make sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me because I do care about the answer.
Why?
Because I care about what's true, and I...
I care about what's true.
Yes.
Well, I find Christianity encompasses everything about life. Christianity is life, so it's about everything. It touches education, politics, care, social services, everything, you see.
Let me ask about another thing in the booklet, which was about AIDS and HIV. I think somewhere it talks about AIDS being wages of sin. Is that mixing health education with moralistic preaching?
I suppose the flip side of that is that if there is no God and there is no lawgiver, why does it matter what I do? Why is rape wrong? Why is paedophilia wrong? Why are any of these things wrong if there is no lawgiver?
You've just said a very revealing thing.
But if there's
you telling me that the only reason why you don't steal and rape and murder is that you're frightened of God?
I think that all people, if they think they can get away with something and there is no consequences, we actually tend to do that. I think that is the reality. Look at the world in which we live. That is the reality.
OK, well, I think we better leave it at that.
Okay.
Adrian Hawkes, I'm sure, is a well-meaning man. But why should he impose his personal version of reality on children? Not only are they encouraged to consider the weird claims of the Bible alongside scientific fact, they're also being indoctrinated into what an objective observer might see as a warped morality.
It's pretty wild on there, isn't it?
Let me explain why, when it comes to children, I think of religion as a dangerous virus. It's a virus which is transmitted partly through teachers and clergy, but also down the generations from parent to child to grandchild. Children are especially vulnerable to infection by the virus of religion. A child is genetically pre-programmed to accumulate knowledge from figures of authority.
Stand on the rope. That's it. Now. Hold on here. Here. There. And here. Hold tight. Got it? Good. There you go.
The child brain, for very good Darwinian reasons, has to be set up in such a way that it believes what it's told by its elders. Because there just isn't time for the child to experiment with warnings like, don't go too near the cliff edge, or don't swim in the river, there are crocodiles. Any child who applied a scientific, sceptical, questioning attitude to that would be dead.
Okay.
No wonder the Jesuit said, "Give me the child for his first 7 years, and I'll give you the man."
3, go!
The child brain will automatically believe what it's told, even if what it's told is nonsense. And then when the child grows up, it will tend to pass on that same nonsense to its children.
So many people think they got the truth, but they've only got deceit. And the devil's greatest weapon was deception.
And so religion goes on from generation to generation.
What are you going to be known as when you die? Sinner or winner? God wants you all to be winners and not to be sinners.
For many people, part of growing up is killing off the virus of faith with a good strong dose of rational thinking. But if an individual doesn't succeed in shaking it off, his mind is stuck in a permanent state of infancy, and there is a real danger that he will infect the next generation. I'm going to meet someone who has experienced religion as child abuse firsthand.
Jill Mitten.
Oh, hello.
I'm Richard Dawkins.
Hello, Richard.
How do you do?
Jill Mitten was brought up in a strict Christian sect.
Yeah.
Today she's a psychologist who rehabilitates young adults similarly scarred by their narrow religious upbringing.
They need to be allowed to hear different perspectives on things. They need to be allowed to investigate. They need to be allowed to develop their critical faculties so that they can take a number of different viewpoints and weigh them up and decide which one is for them. They need to find their own pathways, not be forced into a particular mould as a child. If I think back to my childhood, it's one that's kind of dominated by fear. And it was a fear of disapproval while in the present, but also of eternal damnation.
Do they get taught about hellfire and things like that?
Absolutely. And to a child, images of hellfire and gnashing of teeth are actually very real. They're not metaphorical at all.
Of course not.
No. If you bring a child up and discourage it from thinking freely and making choices freely, then that's still, to me, that is a form of mental abuse or psychological abuse.
Or if you tell a child that when it dies it's going to roast forever in hell.
That is abusive, yes.
What do they tell you about it? I mean, what happens in hell?
It's strange, isn't it? After all this time, it still has the power to affect me when you ask me that question. Hell is a fearful place. It's complete rejection by God. It's complete judgment. There is real fire. There is real torment, real torture. And it goes on forever. So there is no respite from it.